I'll say good morning, good afternoon, welcome.
There we go.
Welcome, Raider Nation, to this edition of the Red Raider Coaches Show. My name is Brent Johnson. I'm alongside me here is head football coach Keith Goss. Coach, how you doing?
Doing all right.
That's just okay.
Just okay. We've been rolling along.
Hey, well, that's because we've been off for a few weeks. We'll get to that in just a second. But we always, at the beginning of the show, want to mention and thank some folks for being a part of our football program. They come along as they support the boosters who support our program in a couple different ways. And one of those ways is they feed our kids, and it's a huge
It's a huge help.
Huge help. So let's talk a little bit about the individuals that helped us out that day. The last game we had.
We had 10 Mile Baptist Church who did the pregame meal, and I believe Julie and Companies did the breakfast that morning.
Well, that's awesome. We really appreciate the churches in our community that step up each and every year. Typically, we have a few more volunteer than we have games for, and hopefully we can fix that with a few extra playoff games. You know?
There we go.
But we also want to thank Julie's and Company for being a part of that breakfast sponsorship. We want to make sure those guys have their belly full on game day at least. And then there's other times during the week that food is provided as far as the sandwiches and those types of things so these guys aren't hungry, and that's a good thing. I also want to quickly mention the first show I said I wasn't going to go over each and every one of the major sponsors for the boosters, but I am going to highlight a couple each particular show, and today is no different. We want to mention Barber's Recycling and also Burt CPAs, who are playing a huge role, again, providing specifically monetary donations that support our program and the other things that we try to do. And speaking of one of those things that people are going to notice a little different about our facility, if they go to the middle school football game today, which we encourage you to do, or watch it live on the NFHS network, maybe more specifically Friday night, Coach, tell us a little bit about what we got hiding over in the corner.
Yeah, it's not hiding. No, it's a jumbotron. We had our booster club really step up and go out and get a lot of sponsors and work really hard. Mr. Larry Taylor headed up that job, that went out and really went and got some people involved. I know every booster club member was helping in some way, shape, or form, but that was kind of his project.
He took the lead. Yeah.
He took the lead on that, and he did a great job. And Joey, Signs by Joey, they've done a good job, getting that thing up, and it's coming in hot. They're fixing it in the end of it and getting the last touches on it, but the board itself is running already, and it looks amazing.
It's pretty neat. You can swing by through the parking lot and see it over in the I would say the southeast portion of the field. It's roughly twice the size, not quite twice the size of the other board that we had. You're going to be able to divide it up into sections depending on what you want to show.
Right.
There'll be a scoreboard type section, then a video type section to show sponsorships or highlight particular players or really whatever it is that we want to do. One thing that I need to go ahead and let people know is we can't show replays of the game. That's a GHSA sanctioned thing that we cannot do. It would be pretty cool, I guess, if we could. I do have the technology to do that, from our video production side of things. But so unfortunately, we can't show the replays, but we can show some highlights from previous games and those types of things, as well as whatever else that deems necessary. So it's a pretty cool thing.
It is. I know I think the way it's currently set up, Heath Carver's done just a ton of work on setting it up, and the scoreboard part should be on the top part of the board, and then underneath it, all our sponsors will roll in 3 different sections during the course of the game, and I think it's just a neat thing for our school system and community to have.
It is. It's a cool. And can't think of the word. It accentuates, I guess. That's not the word either. Sorry, but it's a really cool thing. There's not too many schools, number one, of our size, and specifically down in our area, neck of the woods, that have this type of a thing. And we want to thank all of the people in our community that chipped in for this. And again, it is really neat. And there's some cool things you can do with it. And it's not just about football. It's installed on the football field, but
Right.
we have soccer. We have the other levels, the junior varsity.
Well, even
football,
graduation.
graduations.
You will be able to run a live camera
You're exactly right.
during graduation, so there's not going to be a bad seat in the house.
That's right.
Everybody will be front and center. So
That's right.
there's exciting things coming,
Yeah.
and it's just getting through it and getting to it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, Coach, it's been a couple weeks since we played some football. No fault of our own. We know we had it was a cancellation.
Yes, Berrien had COVID and felt like they could not continue. The school system shut them down. Their coach
Completely.
Yes, like they
everything.
didn't, school, class, they went completely virtual. They had no football for 2 weeks, no athletics for 2 weeks, no anything extracurricular. So he was going to try to push through it, Coach Alligood, but he wasn't given the option.
Well, and that's just the times that we're in right now, folks, and there's a possibility that it could happen again. Hopefully it's not us having to make that decision, and we don't want anybody else to have to make that decision, but it is still a possibility over the course of the next few weeks and months. So we just need to be prepared for that.
There's no doubt. We've even talked as region coaches where if teams are affected during a region play, that we may end up having to be in a Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday, Friday deal. We're playing one team on Tuesday
To avoid those forfeits.
to avoid forfeits.
That's right.
And we all hope we don't get to that.
Yeah.
What we've struggled with at the beginning of this season, we just have to prepare for it.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, again, when we start off the season ourselves missing multiple players, 23 players at one particular time, 9 we mentioned on the defensive side of the ball for ATCO. We did get a few guys back. We'll talk about the Long County game. We got a few guys back, but it just wasn't really game ready, as they returned the day before or the day of.
Right. There was guys that had gotten very few reps. And physically, you would hope they would be able to jump in there and make a big difference. But they weren't really game ready.
Yeah.
And, that showed in our play. There were some things that we, obviously could do better and we could fix. Some mistakes, especially we had on special teams. We had, some guys out there that hadn't had a ton of experience on special teams because they had been there all week. But they were in there. We put them in there. We went to go win the game with them, and it didn't turn out our way.
Well, while we're talking about the Long game, kudos to that team and their program. They got a new coach there. It's a team, and that again, to give them some credit, they've been a struggling program for several years. You were right. You told me they had a salty back, a running back. They had 3 of them back there every
Right.
down, but I forget the kid's number. But he could get it done. He churned it out, churned out a bunch of yards. And again, we were still hurting on defense on the defensive side of the ball, so that didn't help. Help our cause. It went to their advantage.
But with that being said, it's we had a punt return that obviously we had some personnel in that these are the guys that have worked it all week. We're going to stay with them. We had a kickoff return that almost went back for a score. Really full drives of the field on our defense. There was 2.
That's correct.
And so the score is misleading. We threw 2 pick sixes, which we threw 4 touchdowns. But we also threw 2 pick sixes with that. And so that was
Those were the differences in the game.
those
really.
were the differences in the game.
You're exactly right. The 2 special teams, specifically the one they scored, and then late in the game they got that long run back, punched it in about 2 plays. But avoiding those, let's say they do drive down the field, more time's taken off the clock, that kind of thing. But you take away one of the pick six and the punt return, and
it's a different game.
It's a different game. So.
I'm not taking anything away from them. They did a great job. We knew we were shorthanded, and guys that hadn't had a ton of experience in the game and on the field. But with that being said, I'm just not teaching kids to back down when they get dealt a bad hand.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that. And if that costs me a loss, then that costs me a loss. But we're going to get kids better. It will pay off down the line in region play and in years to come. I believe in that.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, yes, could I have ducked out like other coaches and thrown my hands up and said, we had COVID, we can't play? Sure. There's people that wanted me to. It's just not what I believe in.
Well, and we talked about that off camera, either before or after our first show, that was a distinct possibility that we may have to do that, but we wanted to play, wanted to give some kids an opportunity, and that's what these non-region games allow for you to do. Essentially they're scrimmages, to prepare you for that region schedule, because I tell these boys that come into my classroom, I try to encourage them throughout the years, not just this year, that listen, Brantley County's not going to put us in the playoffs. It's Jeff Davis, it's Swainsboro, it's Vidalia,
right?
It's East Lawrence. So we want to perform well. We want to just try to progressively get better, and that's the bottom line with these games.
And that's where it's at. Do you want to win? Yeah, I want to win. I'm competitive. I don't care if it's tiddlywinks. I'm trying to win.
That's right.
My kids know if they can beat Dad in anything, they've earned it, because I don't let them win at nothing. But with that being said, understanding where we're at and the perspective on how to constantly try to move things forward through adverse times, and that's where my focus is.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move forward, and we got this week. We've had 2 weeks essentially to prepare, kind of do some things a little different. This week was strange. We had a long weekend, holiday Monday, in service for teachers Tuesday, distance learning yesterday. So how did you work? How did the practices go the last couple of weeks?
We brought the kids in. We were full go on Monday and Tuesday, full pads. We brought them in at 3 o'clock when the school day was over. And those were good practices. Wednesday, because we really there's no way to get to our stuff.
Yeah.
We can't go into the locker room. We can't go into the weight room. Can't go into the gym. I suppose I could pass out all their equipment, have them take it home, and hope they get back with it. But instead, we flipped our practice routine, and something that one of my coaches had experience with is something that Chip Kelly does is he calls it No Sweat Thursday, and then kind of primes them back up with a little more physicality, not a bunch, but pop pads and a little bit right before the game on Friday. So we obviously have to move that back a day because we play on Fridays. So we went with that look and that model while we were completely shut down on Wednesdays, where we don't have access to a weight room, a locker room.
Yeah.
I mean, we can just get out on the field.
Well, and for the folks out there that don't know, the reason they can't go in is our school buildings are completely shut down on those distance learning days the last 3 weeks for deep cleaning of the school. And they do some fogging and some other things that, again, we just can't be in the building at all day, all evening. Now that's going to change. Yesterday was the last day effectively that we won't be on the distance learning schedule. Now it's not to say that we may have to go back to it, but we did the 3 Wednesdays pretty successfully, and so next week we will be back in the school on Wednesday.
And hopefully back to a normal routine.
Yeah.
So,
okay. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the team we got coming in, they're gonna get mad. We call them the ditch chickens, the blue herons.
And I know their O-line coach over there is going to watch the video, so he'll be.
I'm sorry.
Coach Hendricks, so he'll be on that for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
Locker room material there as
yeah.
well.
No, I mean they're a good team. You know, they are coached well. You can tell that number 10 for him. He's very talented. They're going to try to get him the ball in multiple ways. I think some of his kinfolk and people are from here. I've met his grandma here before. I can't.
What's the kid's last name? Do you recall?
I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Well, he was real athletic last year.
He was.
When
He
we were
was
over there.
He was their guy last year as
Yeah.
a sophomore, and that's just it's even more obvious now that he's a junior.
Yeah.
But he's he's a good one for sure.
Well, they played Charlton. They give Charlton all they wanted. I saw.
They did. They gave Charlton some fits. Southeast Bullock, it got away from them in the second half.
Yeah.
But no, I mean they're a good ball club.
Yeah. Well, defensively, what will they bring to the table?
They're gonna try to move around, try to confuse you. I've seen them at one point give almost the walking 11 look where they have everybody standing up, kind of walking around. They did that a little bit against Charlton, and it's just that's part of their scheme.
Yeah.
I mean that's just stuff they have in the bag, and so you have to prepare for those things when you see them because you gotta let your guys know it's a possibility that you get up there and they're all standing up, walking around, trying to make it hard for you to sort out. And offensively, we know they're spread. But they got a wishbone package they'll jump into from time to time, and we know that about them, so we're prepared for it.
Now, Tim, will he line up mainly as a running back, or does he go down to the slot, or he's just depending on whatever they want him to do?
I mean,
this particular play.
You better find them every play.
Yeah.
So they're going to line them at receiver, they'll line them at running back, quarterback, everywhere.
Yeah. All right. Well, how are we going to combat that, Coach? I know we're still missing a few kids, defensive. And it seems like the COVID and some other things it's mainly affected our defensive side of the ball.
It's hurt us more on defense than it has on offense. That's just the truth. Offensively, while we haven't started the same offensive line yet, 4 of the 5 or 3 of the 5 have been there most games, which is why up till last week when we didn't play, our quarterback was number 2 in AA in passing yards behind Gunnar Stockton. And I don't know if you've heard that kid's name, but
Maybe
he's
this is the number 1 dual threat quarterback in the country.
Yeah, he's not bad. So hanging around your name hanging around the likes of his is pretty good. So we are we're building off of that. Just trying to get guys healthy. There's still 1 or 2 that have faced injury, COVID, personal loss. I'm just trying to get them back in the school building.
Yeah.
And so there's plenty of challenges, but we're gonna meet them all head on and get after it.
Get after it. Offensively, we saw some things. And Dean, he had a really good catch and run for 2 weeks ago. Showed a lot of speed. And I saw him run down the sideline, and I teach another one of the wide receivers, Guinea, and I I said, man, you're really fast. He's like, well, what you mean? I was like, well, because he actually caught Dean from behind and stood and made sure another kid who had an angle wasn't going to have an opportunity to tackle him. So we've got some athletes on the field on offense specifically. Because we can score some points.
We can. I don't doubt that at all. There's times where once we can get everybody here more consistently, we can keep building off what we do offensively.
Yeah.
Although we've had some explosive moments, our full offense isn't even in yet. Just because I might have had 4 starters here this week, but I'm missing this guy, then I'm missing this guy up front, then I'm missing this guy. And moving on blocking scheme wise and moving on, and you're always missing a piece. We're trying to make sure that we all got the fundamentals down. And those are things that we taught during the summer, don't get me wrong. But when you're putting it live and in pads and putting it all together versus different fronts. So, we're getting now to the point where we can start expanding on some wrinkles offensively.
Well, that's a good thing to hear. Well, Coach, we're excited about getting back under the lights tomorrow night. We want to encourage all of Raider Nation to come out and be a part of our first home game we've had in over a month. And so we're excited to be back in the big red monster, whatever you want to call it. That's what I think it is. And trust me, when you climb those stairs as much as I have, you'll call it a monster.
Yeah, it's deserving.
It's deserving. Come out and check out the new the Jumbotron. We'll have some things rolling on across it. And also, it's the Wall of Fame game. We're going to be inducting some new inductees tomorrow night, a special presentation prior to the game. And
I think we're going to go at halftime.
They are going at halftime?
So the way we'll handle it is we'll have our Wall of Fame presentation, and then our band will go on directly after that, and then Brantley's County's band agreed to go after the game.
Okay.
And so that's how we're going to organize it all out.
Perfect. So come and join us. If you can't, you can watch live on the NFHS network, powered by Play on Sports, brought to you by BCTV's Red Raider Broadcasting. And on behalf of Coach, I want to thank you for joining us again on this week's edition of the Red Raider Coaches Show.